What's up, guys? Today we're going to go over how to add a consent form to your Keep the Fees account. We're going to go over all the form fields and also all the settings associated with consent forms. Let's get into it. All right, once you logged into your Keep the Fees account, you're going to go to Forms, then Consent. And then here we're going to hit Create Form. So let's go ahead and give the form a title. Keep in mind, if you're doing a piercing consent form, tattoo consent form, minor consent form, you can go ahead and title it to your liking. So we're hit create form. All right, we'll start top to bottom. So here you have your form title. You can always go back in and edit it if need be. Then we have redirect URL. Here you can input the link that clients go to after they fill out the consent form. You can put your Instagram link, the shop Instagram link, your Google business page, whatever works best for you. You can embed your Google Analytics ID to your consent form if you want to track that via Google Analytics. You can paste that in right here. Form language here, we can pick between English and Spanish. If you do pick Spanish for the language of your consent form, it only applies to navigational stuff and labels within the consent form. You still are going to have to input your fields and everything in Spanish. Auto assign to. Here, depending on the consent form, you can go ahead and auto assign it to a artist if you'd like. If not, you can leave it blank if this is just a general consent form. Walk-in category. When this form is filled out without an appointment, the minimum age from this category applies. Meaning, if I were to put it for tattoo services, whatever minimum age I have set for the category of tattoo services, it will apply to this consent form. And again, if you set up categories before, they'll all pop up right here. Now we can move on to form linked. So here is the shortened link for the consent form that you can send to clients. You have the ability to copy the link. You can go ahead and make it a QR code, which you can download and print. So we always recommend printing this out, putting it at your front desk so clients can scan it and easily fill out the consent form. We also can change the shortened link as well. So you can add a custom short URL. So here I can type in something like, and if I hit add, you can see now our custom link right here has Sparrow at the end of it. So keep in mind, if I try to do Sparrow again, that code is already taken, meaning I can't use it. All right, cool. Now we have consent form text here. This is the general disclosure that goes at the end of the consent form. So here's an example message that you can put in. And again, this is the full disclosure for the consent form. So ensure you have everything needed per your rules and regulations of your county. And you can input it here. All right, up next, we have show preferred artists. Highly recommend having this turned on. So when a client fills out a consent form, there will be an automatic drop down that appears on the consent form, and they can pick which artist is tattooing them from that drop down. And then from here, you can turn on notify artists upon submission. The artist will get an email, SMS, push notification that a consent form has been filled out for them. And this is really useful if you are in a state where you have to fill out ink lot numbers used for the tattoo and all that good stuff. This will notify the artist and ensure that they fill it out. Now from here, we can go into the form builder at the bottom. So things to keep in mind: name, date of birth, email, phone, address, gender, photo ID, and signature are already going to be in the consent form. So you do not need to add these as custom fields. So to add a custom field, you're going to hit the plus button right here. And this side menu is going to pop up. And now we're going to go over all the settings and all the input types that are available. So we'll start with the settings. Here you have required. So when enabled, that means the client must fill out the consent form before uploading it. And they won't be able to submit it until they filled out this specific question or field. Editable. So if you have this turned on, you can go ahead and edit that in the consent form later on. For example, ink lot numbers, you would want to make that editable and also internal. And we'll go over internal here in a second. Pre-fill. So if you have this enabled, the field and input title will be filled out from any previous consent forms that the client has filled out. If you're depending on your state and your county, you probably want to have this turned off. if it's allowed in your state or county, you can go ahead and leave that on. Internal. So if you have this turned on, the field and input type will only be shown internally, meaning the client won't be able to see it when they're filling it out. And again, you can use this and editable in conjunction with each other to do ink lot numbers or anything that you need to do after on the consent form after the client has filled it out. And required to check out. So if you have this enabled, the field type and input type need to be filled out in order to check them out from the consent form. So this is really good for maybe if you have at the end, you have a checkbox saying I understand, and that is required to check out, meaning the client must have filled it out in order for you to move on. You can also use this maybe for your ink lot numbers. So if that's not filled out internally, it won't allow the artist or the shop to fill it out. It's a safety net to ensure that everything was filled out or that specific question was answered. Now we'll go into input type. So the first input type we have is a checkbox. A checkbox can be used as maybe as confirmation to a question or statement. For example, I understand I am getting a tattoo by a licensed artist. So again, I understand, you can use the checkbox, and for this example we can make it required and required to check out. So text field, this is good for maybe, for example, the ink lot numbers. And again, sticking with the same example, ink lot numbers, you can make that editable and internal. So that way we can ensure that we get that filled out. We have large text field. So again, this is going to be for a larger amount of text. It allows for more characters to be typed in. And you can use this for a question like, what are some allergies you have? And now it gives the client more room and character space to type out a longer answer. All right, next we have yes, no. So here you can do, have you taken any substances prior to your appointment / tattoo? Next we have yes, no, other. And again, you can do this for, do you have any allergies? So yes, no, other. And if other, then you can have a text field after that. Here we can do a drop down. Drop down menus are pretty good for what service are you getting? Here you can do tattoo, you can do cover up, flash. This is a way to give you a bunch of options for the question. Display only text. Display only text is our headers that go into your consent form, and it's used to give direction and guidance for the client filling it out. So for example, you can put please fill out the following information. And so again, use this as headers or titles to different sections in your consent form. Very useful. And again, you can make these internal. All right, here we have image upload. Very useful for if you need any other photo documentation of, for example, a notarized document. If you need an image of the area, image of the old tattoo, you can use an image upload and title it, please upload notarized document, for example. And again, with all of these, you have all these different field options to go ahead and create your consent form. Once you add a field, you can use this to drag and reorder the questions. You can see what type of question it is, and then you can also change the options right here, enabled and disable them here. If you need to add more questions, just hit that create new field button. And then once you're all happy and good with your consent form, you can go ahead and click the save button. And that's how you start to create your consent form. If you ever need help trying to figure out what exactly you need or what questions you should put in there, you can go ahead and hit our support chat or email us at support@keepthefees.com.